So are you being too picky? We all know how annoying it is when a well-meaning, probably smugly coupled up friend offers this amazing piece of dating advice as to why you're not meeting the people that you want. I'm dating coach and TED speaker Hayley Quinn, and in this video I've got 5 very important questions that you can ask yourself so that you can decide on your own terms whether you have standards in the right place for your dating life or whether your expectations are too high to possibly be met. Question number 1. Do you bring to the table all of those qualities that you would love to have in a partner? Now, of course, we could all sit there and list our perfect partner, and it's just like the most dream, awesome person ever. And they're like, oh my gosh, yes, they're tall, athletic, have loads of money in the bank, are somewhat famous, really good looking, they've got a graduate degree from an Ivy League university, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes if we have this set of standards for people, we could in fact just be describing a super awesome every person rather than someone who actually connects with us. So what's really valuable to assessing whether those expectations are realistic is to think about what you bring to the table. And instead of seeking qualities in a partner because you haven't worked them out in yourself yet and you'd actually really like someone to bring that to your life, sometimes it's actually good for you to then go back to the drawing board, work on yourself so that you have those qualities, that security, that intelligence, that learning, whatever it is that you like to bring to the table for yourself, rather than use that as what you're seeking in someone else. Second powerful question to ask yourself is, are all the things I'm looking for superficial? So if your current dating criteria is very superficial. It's about age, it's about height, it's about ethnicity, it's about education level, it's about the financial means that a person has. Whilst these things do have some bearing on your compatibility, they're not as fundamental, I believe, as how you connect as people. So you want to check on that list, and maybe before you hit that list of qualities, you want to think instead about interpersonally how you relate to someone. Because even if you want someone who's got £1 million in the bank, that doesn't equal a happy relationship. And undoubtedly a relationship where you feel a lot of love, a lot of safety, and a lot of security. Question 3, is it good enough? Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me when I say this, because something being good enough, we're not the good enough generation. We're like the we can have it all generation. However, I think when it comes to people and dating, life is full of imperfections. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Your relationship with someone will not be perfect. So looking for perfection and never settling, sometimes that actually just keeps us away from having the intimacy and the closeness that we desire. Because there are going to be things that you disagree on. There's going to be things that you wish were slightly different about the person. But that doesn't mean that the relationship is broken. Sometimes it's good to have acceptance that sometimes good enough is good enough in some areas of the relationship, instead of expecting perfection, which might not be realistic. And if you want more advice on settling, I've actually got a whole other video around whether you should settle or not, and it's linked beneath this one, so make sure you check that out. Okay, question number 4. Are you only focusing on relatively minor flaws? So let me give you some examples of some minor flaws. Are you very focused on their complexion or whether they have a few spots? Are you very focused on the fact that they don't wear the right kind of shoes on a date? Are you very focused on the fact they've got one friend that you just don't get along with? Sometimes you can focus on a small imperfection and then lose perspective on everything that's right. And again, instead of going for perfection, and remember back to, is it good enough? So don't focus on minor flaws. Instead, shift your focus to all the positive qualities someone can bring to a relationship. Question 5. Do I ever get far enough into my relationships to work out if someone's compatible with me or not? If you only get a couple of months into dating every single person, then you find a fault with them, which is so bad that you have to exit the relationship. This may be a sign that you've actually become hypervigilant, and rather than doing a good job of filtering people and upholding your standards and boundaries, which is of course very important for successful dating, you may have gone too far in that direction and instead got to the point where you simply eliminate everyone. Hypervigilance can come from a place where we feel like our boundaries have constantly been disrespected in the past and we're sort of hypersensitive to red flags. And by the way, I've got a video on red flags linked for you beneath this one as well. Or it can come from a space where you just feel a little bit uncomfortable getting closer to someone. Maybe the honeymoon phase at the beginning of a romance feels more comfortable to you than the everyday, the good enough is good enough phase, which I think inevitably becomes part of relationships as they mature and develop. So is there something about the honeymoon phase that you're addicted to? Is there a way that you can learn to love relationships as they mature as well? Now, I know it might not feel that way, but I promise you, settling and compromise aren't dirty words in the air of relationships. They don't mean that you don't have any standards. It doesn't mean that you don't have any self-esteem, but it could mean that you have a realistic and healthy view of how relationships function in the real world. It could mean that you accept your limitations and your imperfections as much as you do your partner's. And that isn't a bad thing. That's a beautiful and very human thing. And so when it comes to being too picky, of course, I want to encourage you to maintain your standards. I want you to see yourself as someone who has high standards, not low standards, but just make sure that those standards are absolutely focused in the right place to ensure you're choosing a great partner rather than letting potentially great partners pass you by. If you've liked this video, I would also really appreciate if you give me a like, comment, share, maybe even a subscribe. And if you would love to hear more about my relationship advice, you can head over to hayleyquinn.com/real love. The link is below this video.